This is probably the option that I would choose for most things because, and in my prompt, I also said, this was a relief for me that you could have multiple. And this is one of my hints for you here is make sure to just tell it to, my thought to help reduce your usage would be, hey, so over the last few days, I've created a couple of Claude Design projects, and I just sort of wanted to walk you through my experience and show you a couple of things that I hope will help you on your journey along the way. So I started with, I believe it was this word finder, which I thought was a pretty cool little interaction. So the idea is that learners will need to find all the keywords in here. And so my prompt was pretty straightforward. I want the author to enter a large box of text, and they'll add words. Then it comes back and it asks you a lot of questions about your project, design, who you're aiming for. But this one's pretty cool. So it's got an author mode and a learner mode. If I click over to learner, let me hide this. Then we can see the idea is I'm supposed to come through and click each one of these words. So this was very cool. I love the tweaks here. So this isn't part of my application. This is a part of the Claude Design panel here. And what it does is it tries to identify things that you may want to tweak in your application, just simple things overall. So like right now, my joy highlight is full, but I could switch it to marker and I could say, oh yeah, I like that better. I can change how compact everything is, change the color of the accent marker, little things like that, show the progress bar or not. And so those are under tweaks, and those are going to be different for every project that you create. So let's go back and look at a couple of the other projects. So then I thought it'd be fun to do just a COPD because I have a storyboard for it. So in this case, I told it that I wanted to make a course. And so it assumed from that it would be a PowerPoint type thing, and it created this. You'll notice for this one, for some reason, they didn't create any tweaks at all. That's okay, because I'm going to show you another way to change stuff in just a minute. So this one's pretty cool, and if I wanted to share it, I could just download it as a PowerPoint, and we'll talk about a couple of these options here in just a minute. Let's go back. So then I just thought, well, let's see what a website would look like for the COPD. So I gave it the exact same information, told it I wanted to make a course, but this time like an online course rather than a slide deck. And so I also told it that I wanted to go deep in the interactivity. And in my prompt, I also said, add lots of things to the tweak panel, because I do like using this tweak panel that it creates so that I can play with the design as I'm building. Now, so it added lots of options to the tweak here, including the entire theme, the corner radius for shapes, how compact I want it. So it created all kinds of stuff for me there. Very cool, very cool. And it does look like your standard kind of e-learning course with a menu on the side. It created lots of interactions for me. Now, what would you do with this next? Well, I could export it. I could pull the whole project as a zip file. You could create a PDF from it. Probably would have to reformat the whole thing. Same for a PowerPoint. Send it to Canva. I never use Canva. I hear people saying how great it is. I just never got into it. You can export it as just a standalone HTML page, which might be great for this because this is a course. And we can also hand it off to Claude Code. This is probably the option that I would choose for most things because although this seems very interactive, like I can click and expand and shrink things, it's not really a full-blown application. In other words, it doesn't have any connections to a database. For us in the e-learning world, it doesn't have a SCORM wrapper around it or XAPI or anything like that. So you're going to want to be able to take this design, even though it's very interactive, and turn it into something else that can report completion, etc. And so to do that, I would use Claude Code for that. So in most cases, I'm going to be handing it off to Claude Code so that I can then prompt it to add SCORM statements, etc. Now, let me jump back over to, well, wait, let me go back and point something out here. So for these, let's go back to this one. You might notice that it has a tendency to always use kind of the same look. Even though they're saying, this is a design tool, it almost always looks the same. So you can resolve some of this with prompting. You could put in your prompt at the beginning, hey, don't use, because it always seems to use this instrument serif. Don't use that one. You could try to add those to the prompts, or you could create a design. And so for that, there's a drop down here. I can select none, or I can select my Happy Alien design system when I'm creating a new one. And you can always create new design systems as well. This was a relief for me that you could have multiple design systems in here. And so what that does for you, oops. What that does for you is now when you create stuff, it'll use your design. The downside is that took about 15 minutes for me to create. It connected to my GitHub repo, and I also gave it, we have some style documents that we use for our company, and so I gave it a lot of that. It asked me a ton of questions along the way, and then it churned for like 15 minutes to create the design system. And we can see here, for every project, it creates a ton of different folders in here. So you can open each one of these up and see everything that it created in there. So once you have a design system set up, that really lets you start laying things out and coloring things, etc., in your style. So I wanted to give it another shot at our Happy Alien homepage. And for this one, this is pretty cool. I just said, let's redesign happyalien.ai. And it came up with a new design. But this was using the old one before I created my design system. So let's go back and I'll show you one that I created with that design system, which is this course signal landing page. And so here you can see now it has a completely different look. It's not using those same fonts and paper stuff. And so I gave it for this. I'm going to scroll up to the top of this whole conversation. I told it to use the Happy Alien design system. And then I also just pasted in a bunch of information about what the EchoCast or course signal product is. And I'm actually pretty happy with what it came up with. So let me show you some of the other options, because we talked about tweaks, which are pretty cool. This one lets me, the only tweak it came up with for this one was changing the hero section up at the top. But that's all right, because there's a lot of other ways to change things. So let's take a look at it. First, we have edit. And this is pretty cool because I can select anything on the screen and it will show me all the details that it used to create that. And I can come in here and edit those at will. So if I wanted to say, make that 10 pixels from the top, we can see it just move down, move back up. So that is very cool that you have the ability to granularly edit anything on the screen. Then if I wanted to edit more than just like, or I shouldn't say more than, let's say I want all the buttons to have less radius. I could come in and click each one of those, but it would be better to just use the comment. So when I select comment now, I can select, oh, there we go. I need to upgrade my plan. But with the comment, you can select any item on there, and then I could say make all the buttons square or something. So the nice thing about the comment is you can just describe things with natural language, and you can tell it to apply it to more than one thing on the screen. Or you could use the edit if you really just wanted to change one thing on there. For instance, it had a pill at the top of this that I thought looked a little too AI-y, so I just selected that and said, hey, remove that with a comment in there. Another way that you can build things is just with a screenshot. So in this case, what I did was I started with this screenshot and I said, let's build this with several color and font options. I would also like to animate the background. And so it built that pretty much just the way it was. It looked very similar to the original. And of course, it gave me these options because I told it, and this is one of my hints for you here, is make sure to just tell it to give you options. And then it will throw them in this tweak panel, which is really nice to be able to pull it up and tweak it, just to blanket tweak everything all at once in there. And then it had the same sort of radial spinny thing on there that the original one kind of did. You can see it sort of in the background there. And so I came back and I said, hey, let's try some other animated background types like blob, spirals, clouds, silliness. And it created all these for me. And it lets me come into my tweak panel and try different ones in there, which is very cool. But then, of course, I hit my limit. And I got to say, I hit my limit a lot sooner than I expected to. And I happen to be on the top best plan that they have. But unfortunately, they count the usage separate from everything else. So even though my other products I've barely touched so far this week, Claude Design, boom, I just ate it all up. And I really do think that a lot of that came from the design system here. I'm sure some of it came from these other ones. Like I said, it chomps through, well, this one, not a lot. But if we take a look at the one I was working on when I got that message, that would be COPD with images. We can see when we look at the design folders here that it was doing a lot. It came up with all these images from my storyboard. It took my storyboard and created all these different files from it. So it churns a lot when you give it stuff. My thought to help reduce your usage would be when you create a design system, and you're going to need to, when you create a design system, try to give it as much as you can up front. Maybe go work in another AI tool to refine and define your design system first. And that way, hopefully, it'll have to do less churning here. And probably the same when creating sites and slide decks here in design. Try to just give it as much as you can up front so that it's less tokens it's got to burn to create your project. Looks like I got to wait till Friday. It's going to be a long wait before I can play with it again. But I hope to do another video as soon as I can get back at it. Thanks.